Hi, I'm John, and in this video I'm going to compare my Fuji Semi-PRO 2 HVLP to my Graco TC Pro, also known as the Ultra Airless. I ran out of time on my spraying planters video, and I wanted to include some additional information for anyone who might be trying to decide between these two guns. I'm going to go ahead and test spray these two plywood panels, and once they're dry I'll take them outside in the natural daylight and compare them side by side. I'll also go over some comparisons that may be useful for anyone trying to decide between these two guns. For these test panels, I'm not going to spray primer. I'm just going to go with the leftover command that I have from the planters. I have sanded the panels using 150 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to use the 514 spray tip with the Graco, and I'm going to spray the command undiluted, and I'm going to use a 2.0 millimeter cap set with the Fuji, and I'm going to dilute it about 10%. I'm going to spray both sides of these panels. I'll start with them horizontally, and then after that dries, I'll flip them up and I'll spray them vertically. And then once that dries, take them outside and take a look at them. So I let the panels dry overnight, and I'm going to take them outside and compare them in the daylight in just a minute. I ended up putting 2 coats on each of the sides for the Graco, and I did 3 on each of the sides for the Fuji. I didn't sand in between coats, and that's way more apparent on the Fuji panel than on the Graco. I normally scuff sand in between coats when I'm spraying with my Fuji sprayer. I think that one of the important things about trying to decide between these two guns, if you're only able to purchase one of them, is figuring out what you're going to spend the bulk of your time spraying. I think both of these guns are really good guns, and they're a great choice for a hobbyist or a DIYer. They do use really different technologies. The Semi-PRO 2 uses a turbine to force air into the gun, and that pressurizes the cup, propels it forward in like a really fine mist. So this works great for your polys and stains. The Graco, on the other hand, has a pump that's built into the top part of the gun, and it forces the paint out through a very small hole at a high pressure. So the pressure on this thing, it can go up to 2,000 psi. The pressure on the HVLP, the Fuji, the one that I have here, is only probably around 5 psi. So there's a big difference in terms of the technologies. That means this one's going to spray a lot more material, and you're going to get a heavier coat, a much finer coat with the Fuji. For filtering and thinning paint, both of these guns, the way that I use them, have filters built into the gun or into the cup. You don't have to worry about pre-filtering, which is nice. The Graco comes with a coarse and a fine filter. There's a black one that is what you want to use for spraying heavier materials, and then there's a blue one that looks exactly like this for spraying like thinner materials. The Fuji, I use the 3M PPS 2.0 system for the cups, and these have a built-in filter into the head or the cap that goes on the liner. These come in a coarser 125 micron filter, and then this one is the 200 micron filter. I think the 125 one is blue, or is tinted blue. This one is clear. So for the Fuji Semi-PRO 2, I did have to thin the Benjamin Moore command about 10%, and I normally thin thicker material when I'm spraying with the Fuji about 8 to 10%. And I've done that with Benjamin Moore Advance, with command, and also with various primers, primarily sticks. And I haven't noticed that there's any issue with the resulting finish when I thin it. It is nice not to have to thin it, and the Graco just sprays it right out of the can, so that is definitely a plus. So the Graco definitely sprays more paint. And I'm still getting used to the speed control setting that in conjunction with the spray tip selection and how fast I move the gun. It's just something that just have to get used to. The Fuji sprays a much finer mist, and I've kind of got a tempo when spraying that down that works for me. So I find that a little bit easier to use. It sprays less paint, and there's also less overspray when you're spraying it. So you can see in the back of where I sprayed, there is overspray with the Fuji, but it's very fine, and you can see the thicker material from the Graco. So in terms of just using these two guns, both of the guns you're tethered. So with the Fuji, you have the turbine, the air hose from the turbine, and then from the Graco, for the model that I have, you have the AC adapter power cord going out. It's not something that really bothers me. I don't find that it really gets in my way of what I'm doing. There is a more expensive version of this gun, of the Graco, whether it's the TC Pro or the Ultra. There's a version that comes with, or that uses DeWalt batteries. So you can get away from the cord here and just use the DeWalt batteries. But it's quite a bit more expensive, and then you have the cost for the battery. So like I said, it doesn't bother me to have a connection. Just kind of used to it. I will say that I find this gun is a lot smaller and lighter and easy to move around. Basically comparing this to this, and this is just a lot lighter, it's smaller, it has less paint in the cup. This has that pump in the actual gun itself, so it's heavier. It's harder to maneuver around. For spraying these two panels, I use the 514 spray tip in the Graco, and I had the speed setting at 5. And for the Fuji, I used a 2mm cap set. So you're going to use more paint with the Graco, but you'll get a thicker coat. So that, depending on what you're spraying and whether you're spraying something like the Command, where it's nice to have a thicker coat, it'll lay down and it'll even out, it'll much better, as opposed to if you're spraying something like polyurethane tinted with some kind of stain, and you want thinner coats so that you can build it up to a certain point, kind of like toning coats, and dial in the color that you're looking for. So as I mentioned, the cup size on the Graco is much larger than the one that I'm using, the 3M PPS 2.0. This one is a 32-ounce cup, and Graco, you can also get a 42-ounce cup that'll work with this gun. This one is a 13.5-ounce cup, but you can also purchase, I think it's a 28-ounce cup. So I really do like this 3M system, but the one thing I don't like is when you have to refill the cup. I find it hard to add additional material when I'm spraying. It's the removing the top that's a problem. Refilling the Graco is actually pretty easy. You just will pop off the gun, and there's the liner. There's no cap on the top of the liner here, so you have immediate access to the container after you've removed this. And this is a screw-off top, so it's actually a lot easier to deal with. So for cleanup on these two guns, the cleanup actually isn't too bad. It does take more time than if you're brushing and rolling, but for the Graco, I go through probably three cups of water to flush the material out of the gun itself, and then I run Pump Armor through the gun. The same thing with the Fuji. I go through 3 cups. I spray those through. Once those are through, then I'll break it down and take it downstairs to my utility sink and clean out the rest of the parts with water. I think that with the Fuji, there are more parts to clean, but the thing I like about the Fuji is I can actually see right inside the gun. so I can tell whether I've gotten it clean or not. The thing that concerns me a little bit about the Graco is I'm always paranoid that I'm going to leave some material in the pump and potentially screw it up. So I probably rinse more than I need to in terms of water going through it, which probably isn't great for it. And then I also I put quite a bit of the pump armor through it. In terms of how much noise these two guns make, the Fuji is definitely louder. The turbine runs all the time, and it's just at a higher pitch. It's kind of around the, I'd say a little bit higher pitch than a shop vac. The Graco is all you hear is the pump running, and it's only when you're actually spraying something. So it's really not that loud, and it isn't a super high pitch, so I don't find it too bad. I do normally wear ear protection when I'm spraying with the Fuji for a while. I don't always wear ear protection with the Graco. So the point of this video was really to just provide information for anyone who's looking to buy a sprayer, and you're looking at these two models. They're both good guns, and you're trying to decide if you're only going to get one, which one that you would get. And I think that it has a lot to do with what you're going to be primarily spraying with it. Now, if you're going to be spraying all the things on all the things and you can only get one, then your decision should probably focus on whether you think the Fuji will do an acceptable job with a thicker material versus whether you think the Graco will do an acceptable job with a thinner material. Due to the technologies and the limitations, and some of them are related to the price points of these two particular guns, they each have their pluses and their minuses. That being said, if you're going to be primarily spraying large items like sheds, outdoor furniture, trim, doors, then you're going to probably appreciate the faster application speed and the volume that the Graco can provide. However, if you're going to be spraying primarily smaller items, indoor furniture, and especially if you're going to be spraying thinner materials like poly, stains, lacquers, then you're probably going to appreciate the Fuji Semi-PRO 2 a lot more. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these two guns. I can apply the finish a lot faster. It's more consistent. Once I dial it in, I can do the same thing over and over. And I think it turns out a lot better than when I brush and roll things. And it could be that I just suck at brushing and rolling, but I actually enjoy applying a finish with both of these guns. I find it, it's actually kind of fun to do. So I tried filming outside, but the direct sunlight just washed out everything. Then I tried in the shade, and that was too dark, so I ended up inside to film the panel comparisons in indirect sunlight. Hopefully really show off some of the detail on how they turned out. I do see a slight difference between the two panels. The Graco ended up with a better finish overall with fewer coats. It does do better than the Fuji when spraying with heavier materials like the Command. I don't know that the Fuji is really that far behind though, and maybe if I had sprayed one more coat with the Fuji, they'd be on par. To me, the results really highlight just how important it is to apply primer and scuff sand in between coats. I didn't see the crappy texture in my garage, but I think sanding in between coats would have taken care of it. Well, thanks for checking out my video. I hope you found something useful. I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel and giving me a thumbs up or adding a comment. And see you in the next video.